Hi, I'm Tim Smith. I'm the project coordinator for the Western Republican River Riparian Improvement Project. Today I'd like to speak to you about Russian olive and how the Southwest Weed Management Area is trying to control Russian olive in the Western Republican River Valley. This is a Russian olive thicket, and we're seeing populations of Russian olive just like this all up and down the Republican River. In these places, there are over 400 mature Russian olives per acre. And each one of those Russian olives is consuming between 80 to 120 gallons of water per day during the growing season. So let's talk a little bit about identifying Russian olive, and then let's go kill some.
Russian olive was introduced into the United States in the late 1800s from Eurasia, and up until a few years ago it was widely planted for shelter belts and landscaping. Its leaves are long and narrow, and they are dull green with a silvery sheen. In early summer it produces a small white or yellow flower, and then these develop into small white berry-like fruit. Its bark is a silvery gray with a shredded appearance, and on the younger branches you'll often find large sharp thorns. We've seen these in the Republican River Valley up to 30 feet tall, but they do get larger. Few animals feed on or bother Russian olive, so there really is no biologic control. And Russian olive is highly invasive in riparian habitats, and when uncontrolled, it will eventually become the dominant tree species. Russian olives present a difficult control problem because they re-sprout vigorously from a cut stump. So each stump must be treated with an herbicide quickly after cutting to prevent regrowth.
So how did we go about trying to control Russian olive in the Republican River Valley? Well, spraying. These are just too large, there's too many of them. Spraying works excellent on small Russian olives, but these are out of the question. What about fire? Well, that's actually been tried. Let's go see how that turned out. I'm in Dundee County this afternoon in an area that a fire has gone through. Although fire is a very effective control method for eastern red cedar, you can see on Russian olives it really doesn't do much. The Russian olives are a little too succulent, a little too green, and fire really has no effect on them. So at least in our situation, spraying or fire was out of the question. That left only one option. Do I look crazy? Don't answer that. But there are better ways to remove these large Russian olives. Now let's go look at some of the machinery that we used on this job.
This machine is a forestry head on a bobcat skid steer, and this just mulches the Russian olive in place. And though we really like these machines for red cedar control, the mulch layer that they leave makes it real difficult to find the stump so that you can treat it. Consequently, we didn't use these much on Russian olives. Here we see a tree shear mounted on the front of a skid steer. Now this particular crew utilized a ground man to follow the shear around and spray every stump as soon as the tree was cut. And this proved to be really effective at eliminating any regrowth. Another advantage of this ground man was he could see any small trees that maybe the operator in the machine couldn't. This particular machine is called a Marshall saw, and we really like these, especially on the really large trees. This type of saw produced a deeply fractured stump that really allowed the chemical treatment to penetrate well, making it that much more effective. A Marshall saw has a sprayer built right into its boom, so these crews don't require a ground man. You can see how easily this Marshall saw handles this very large Chinese elm tree. Here we have a Bobcat mini excavator with a boom-mounted tree shear. We didn't use this type of machine very much, but when we needed one, they were sure handy to have. It was particularly well suited in reaching into swampy areas where another machine couldn't go, and for snipping trees in and out of fences. This machine is called a hydro axe. It was hired by a private landowner and used on a property that was not part of our project. These machines were developed for the farm timber industry, and they are a high-speed production machine. So you notice that no one is standing too close to this beast while it's in operation. Since these machines don't have a built-in sprayer, a ground man is required to treat the cut stumps. The operator will cut for about 10 minutes, then shut down and give the ground man the all clear to come in and treat the stumps. All in all, a very effective tool for Russian olive removal. This ended up being the machine that we use the most. It's called a turbo saw. It's basically a big circular saw, and it's mounted on the front of a skid steer. We liked these because they were very versatile. They could handle thick brush as well as the occasional large tree. They also have an integral sprayer that's built right into the boom. This eliminates the need for a ground man. And they were very fast. Watch now as I risk life and limb to document how a turbo saw handles a 20-inch Russian olive. And please keep in mind that I didn't think this was nearly as funny as the president of the Southwest Weed Management Area did. Now the operator is going to clean that stump off before he applies the chemical. Here you can really see how that boom-mounted sprayer works.
Now this is the stump of that big Russian olive that Carl just sawed over and tried to kill me with. We're using a mixture of Garlon and Stalker to spray these stumps. And as you can see, that boom-mounted sprayer does a really good job of applying that spray to these stumps. This tree isn't going to grow back.
So what are we doing with all these trees we're removing? Well, unfortunately, right now our only option is to just stack them in large piles.
Got any hot dogs? This is the end result with a lot of our piles. Unfortunately, at the current time, there's really no economic use for these piles of trees. A lot of them are in very remote locations, and just to be quite honest, Southwest Nebraska is a long way from anywhere. So, at this particular time, this is about the most economically viable way to get rid of these piles. If you own property and you're having an issue with Russian olive, I would encourage you to contact your county weed superintendent or the appropriate local agency. They can give you expert advice on how to control Russian olive, and they can guide you to sources of assistance. Come here, Scooter. Scooter!